Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Iqbal Naseem, and on behalf of the Oxbridge Muslim alumni, I'd like to welcome you here this evening. I'm a committee member. My day job is being the chief executive of the National Zakat Foundation, but I'm not here to talk about that. You'll be pleased to know. Sarah asked me, as the chair of the Oxford Muslim alumni, just to host this evening. I'd like to thank her and also Simmons & Simmons for allowing us to be here this evening for this event. So really, without further ado, we'll get on with the introduction. Sohail's also asked me to recite the verses that he will be exploring with us. But before I do that, just to introduce Sohail, as per the advert, which is why you're all here, Sohail Hanif is a Muslim scholar and academic. After graduating from Imperial College in London, he spent over a decade abroad, mainly in Jordan, studying various Islamic sciences and teaching at the Qasid Institute there. I was actually a student of his over a decade ago. After I graduated, I spent some time there. And he's returned 2-3 years back, finished a master's in Oxford, and now is doing his PhD, or finishing his PhD this year, hopefully, that's the plan, in Islamic law at Oxford. So we're very grateful and privileged to have him here today. And with that, I'm just going to recite the verses from Surah Baqarah. These are verses 183 to 186, which is the famous sort of passage on Ramadan, on fasting. And after that, pass it on. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون أياما معدودات فمن كان منكم مريضا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر وعلى الذين يطيقونه فدية طعام مسكين فمن تطوع خيرا فهو خير له وأن تصوموا خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان فمن شهد منكم الشهر فليصمه ومن كان مريضا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر يريد الله بكم اليسر ولا يريد بكم العسر ولتكملوا العدة ولتكبروا الله على ما هداكم ولعلكم تشكرون وإذا سألك عبادي عني فإني قريب أجيب دعوة الداع إذا دعان فليستجيبوا لي وليؤمنوا بي لعلهم يرشدون. صدق الله تعالى. جزاكم الله خيرا. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما تعلمنا وزدنا من فضلك علما إنك على كل شيء قدير ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. جزاكم الله خير. Thank you very much. That was very beautiful. We wanted to look today and talk about the meaning of Ramadan and the meaning of fasting in Ramadan. And we wanted to do this by exploring the passage in the Quran that talks about this. And there's two reasons why I've chosen this as the entryway, or in fact the entire map of today's conversation. The first of these is that these passages really do put us right into the heart of the matter, which is what we're interested in.
And secondly, because as you might know, we will be talking about the Quran and approaching the Quran as part of the objectives really underlying the entire month of Ramadan. And so I wanted today's presentation to serve as an illustration, if you like, of what it is that we're going to be talking about. Meaning, how do you approach God through His book? How do you understand your place in the world through His book? How do you come to terms with your duties, your responsibilities through His book? Which is what we want to be saying is part of the objectives of this month. And so it's almost in a form of group study, which we'll go through together. And at the end, we'll reflect on what we've learned through this short journey that we're going to be taking together. So journey is a big word, but short. It's a journey in as much as there's a lot here, if we really think about it. And so we'll just go through it, like I said, just like a close reading from the beginning of these passages until the end, and a little bit after what we didn't read as well. So the verses start with an address you'd all be familiar with, which is Ya ayyuhal ladina amanu, which is O you who have believed. This is an address which begins a number of the very key and important and central injunctions of the Quran. And the call is from God, saying, O you believers, O you who have claimed belief, O you who have won on to this belief, I have something very important to tell you, which is intrinsic to this belief which you have. And so before coming on with the instruction, it's preparing you. I've got something to say, it's really important, it's part of that core belief which you have. It's part, fulfilling it is a part of what it means to be a believer. And so after this call to really make you start listening and thinking deeply about this belief you have and its consequences, the instruction comes immediately then. Kutiba alaykumus siyam. Siyam literally means just restraint, withholding. It has been inscribed upon you. It is a duty, i.e. the fast. And immediately it says, كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ. Just as it was inscribed on those people that came before, the followers of previous nations and prophets. What is the reason for this comparison? There's a number of things these scholars have mentioned, and each of them, though, point towards one idea, which is a recurring theme in these passages, as you're going to be seeing, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God Most High, He's not talking to you, or talking at you if you like, but He's reasoning with you. He is talking right into your soul. And whatever motivations, whatever will pull you, He's tugging on you from that, pulling you towards your own advantage. And so you'll see a number of these tugs, if you like, right in the depths of your being, in a number of these passages, as we'll be seeing. And the first of these is a very simple comparison. It was upon those who went before you. First of all, showing that fasting is one of those ongoing acts of subservience to God, which everyone who has believed in God has been asked to do, i.e. a central act of being a true believer in God on this earth, in whatever time you are in and whatever place you're in. Also, they say it's to make the duty easy. And this is something that comes again, like I said, again and again in these passages, is that, because they say when a difficult task is upon everybody, it becomes easier to do. If I told you that you're the only person in the world who has to go through 10 years of school to be a doctor, everyone else can just, walk in, it'd be quite a difficult task for you. But if everyone's going through 10 years of school to be a doctor, you think, oh, that's just what you do. It's all right, I can do it. And so people have been doing it. Many people have done this. Many people have benefited from it. You can do it too. And a final reason the scholars do mention is, again, one of those tugs, if you're one of those people who are moved on by a sense of competitiveness, that many people have been doing this for me. Would you also do it for me? So, and all of them, like I said, are pulling you in to this instruction. And then we get straight to a punchline almost. What's all this about? Before you're being told when you're doing it, how you're doing it, what the details are, you're being told straight away many people have been doing it. It's really useful. And there's a direct fruit, there's a direct consequence, which is لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, that you might win on to this taqwa. And taqwa is a word of the most celebrated words of the Qur'an. And the Quran indeed opens with the very simple statement that this book guides the people of taqwa. And so it's saying this is a route right straight to what your objective is, believers. Taqwa has been translated, loosely almost, as a consciousness of God, which is a reasonable rendering, an awareness of God. You take it with you wherever you are, an ongoing, constant awareness of God to guide you in your actions. And the reason for this, they say taqwa comes from the Arabic wiqaya, which means protection. And that's why classically scholars always explain taqwa as a protective measure. They say it's taking on a life in where you protect yourself from the wrong consequences of your actions, i.e. from the punishment of God. They talk about taqwa as an example. It's like walking through a thorny field and you pull your clothes in so nothing gets ripped. It's about it's a careful approach to life, to make sure you don't fall into something which is going to be hurting you, now or later, now or forever. What's the connection between this fasting and this taqwa? Is a rather direct connection, because if taqwa is restraint, and I said siyam is also restraint, fasting is nothing but controlling yourself. There's no words, there's no actions, there's no rituals. It is pure self-restraint. Another word for self-restraint, actually, in the Quran and in Arabic is sabr. And sabr is also of the great ongoing virtues of the Holy Book. Sabr is controlling yourself, holding yourself back because you know there's something better that you should be doing. Al-Imam al-Junaid, one of the early scholars, he said about sabr, he said sabr is to swallow something bitter without showing it on your face. Think about that for a sec. If this was lemon juice, and I thought it was like scanjabin, sugary lemon juice, but there's no sugar in it. If I were to sip it, you'd see a particular reaction on my face. Junaid is saying here, it's obvious, it's just a metaphor, but it's saying sabr is about not showing it on your face, keeping it between you and God. And that's why, just a small bit of advice as we continue talking about fasting, is that we are entering into the fasting of summer. And the fasting of summer is the real fasting. All fasting is real, of course. But we will be feeling thirst, hunger, weakness. We'll be feeling a lot of different things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about the people of patience, He says, يُوَفَّ الصَّابِرُونَ أَجْرَهُمْ بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ. The people of sabr are paid their wage, their reward, without any limit. They get the real big payments, if you like, on Judgment Day, the people who had sabr. And so, just at the beginning, before we get into this, part of really drawing the benefit of fasting is that we don't complain to people about our fasts. So as much as we can, your fits of hunger, your desire for water, your weakness, as much as it's possible, you keep it between you and God. And let people see a straight back and a smiley face. And you ask Allah, make this easy for me, and please accept this from me. This is what I'm offering to you. And make your fast your journey within. And it's a tremendous journey within. Why? Because the verses don't just stop here. But this journey within, this heightened spirituality that you will feel in this month, is a means to something else as well, as the verses will go on to tell us. So what do the verses say next? Before we go on to what, the time to fast or anything else, we're immediately told in the next verse, أَيَّامًا مَعْدُودَاتٍ. It's just a few days. Numbered days. And so again, like I said, you're not being given an instruction from a manual. There's someone speaking to you who really wants to help you out, as the verses will say explicitly very soon. It's just a few days, and you'll get a lot out of it. Immediately after that, فَمَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مَرِيضًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ فَعِدَّةٌ مِّنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرٍ. And if you happen to be sick, or you happen to be traveling, then just make up the number on some other days. I'm not asking you to do something if you can't do it. It's just a few days, and if you can't do that even, it's okay. Just make up the number. The number's important. And then it says, وَعَلَى الَّذِينَ يُطِيقُونَهُ فِدْيَةٌ طَعَامُ مِسْكِينٍ. There's some disagreement about the interpretation of this verse. But what many scholars say is, just one second. What many scholars say is that it's a reference to an early dispensation, which was that in the beginning, when fasting was legislated and it was new to the believers, they were given an option that if you're able to fast, but it's tricky, then you can feed someone poor instead. So the literal translation is, and upon those who are able, is a ransom by feeding someone who is poor, interpreted as I've mentioned. فَمَنْ تَطَوَّعَ خَيْرًا فَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَهُ. But if you were to, of your own accord, pay even more in feeding someone poor, then it's better for you. وَأَنْ تَصُومُوا خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. But better than all of that is that you fast. If only you knew. How do you feel when you're told that? When God says to you, it's only a few days, if you can't do it, just make up the number's quite important. You have this dispensation, which I'll come back to in just a little bit. If you need to feed someone, then feed someone. If you can feed more people, then the more you feed, the better. But truly, fasting is the best thing for you, if only you really knew what it was about. It makes you really, God is saying to you, just trust me. You feel something very special of someone who really cares for you and saying there's a lot of good in this, if you would trust me in it, almost. It also heightens your curiosity somewhat to want to know, well, what are these special things about fasting? And so from this, scholars have written a very great deal about the benefits of fasting. You'll find some wonderful things in some excellent books. There's a book translated by Muhtar Holland called The Inner Dimensions of Islamic Worship, a section from Ghazali's Ihya. You'll find some wonderful inner etiquettes and so on of fasting. The verse pulls you to thinking about that. Fasting is better for you, if only you knew. And scholars have said many, many things about this, because what does fasting do? If you're controlling yourself and holding yourself back from the things that you normally like to do for the sake of God, that naturally makes you think about all the things that you normally shouldn't be doing for the sake of God. Meaning, if I'm controlling myself from what's normally allowed, then what about all those other things that normally I shouldn't be doing? It gives you a heightened sense of responsibility, the beginning of this taqwa of which we're speaking. And that's why, as we'll be coming to later, real fasting, it pulls you in. It makes you think about your responsibility, not hurting others, not speaking ill of others, making sure you're offering your prayers, and so on. And some of the scholars, like Ghazali, they'll say this is the higher level of fasting, which is abstaining from sins. Again, fasting meaning abstaining. And that pulls you also to a higher level, which is what they say is abstaining from everything but God. They call that the true inner fast. Again, fasting calls you to thinking about that, also because of what the next verse will tell us also. The Prophet ﷺ, he also guided us, instructed us to the fact that fasting has these dimensions. It will naturally pull you towards. He said, if someone insults you and fights you, just say to him, oh, I'm fasting. Reminding you, you're in an act of worship right now. You've offered your body to God, almost, by withholding for His sake. So you don't go against, it's like your pilgrim state. When you worship always has this state which accompanies it. Like when you enter the prayer, you know what you do. You recite the Quran, you bow and so on. But you're also in a state. In this state, speaking is haram, moving around is haram. All these things are haram. Why? To really illustrate to you, you're in a sacred state right now, which this prayer is being offered in. Same with the Hajj, right? We offer the Hajj, but in addition to that, we enter this sacred state called the Ihram, which you don't cut hair, you don't put perfume on. It's to remind you, you are in a sacred offering of your own being to God's house. And it reminds you of that. So likewise, the fasting is meant to remind you, take it with you throughout your day, but you are now in a sacred worship. So you don't engage in fighting, you don't engage in swearing and all those other things. And again, we will come back to that. The Prophet said also, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that the bad breath of the person who fasts is like musk to God. What does that mean? It's part of that sacred state, really, because what happens is, whatever you feel, whatever consequences you have, the bad breath is the worst of them, if you like, because the one you're most conscious of. What about the hidden stuff, the hunger, the thirst? All of this is what you're offering to him. And if your bad breath is like musk, meaning he appreciates from you your offering, then we shouldn't be hating the pains, if you know what I mean, because that's what we're offering to him. And so we ask him to accept from us. And doesn't mean you don't have to, show your new musk to your friends. You can use miswak, and scholars have spoken about these things. The point is, you don't hate what the worship is bringing on, but rather you direct it to God, whatever you find of it, and say, "Oh Allah, accept this from me, between me and you. This is my worship to you." And then, like I said, this is all I'll say for now about what scholars have said about fasting being better for you. They also talk about, the Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that the devil courses through a person's veins, like his blood. And they say about fasting, it weakens these veins, and it weakens something of the devil. And it's something you will all feel again. I'll call it the heightened spirituality that comes in this month. But this heightened spirituality is not for no end. It's for another end, which the verse then goes on to now. Now you must be really excited about this fast, right? So now you're being told when it's happening, so you don't miss it. Shahru Ramadan, the verse finally says. The month of Ramadan, that's when this is happening. And it's not just being told to you so that you don't miss the date. We're being told something really special about this month. الَّذِي أُنزِلَ فِيهِ الْقُرْآنِ. That's what it's all about. So you've been taken now a level deeper. We're observing a number of fasts because it's a medicine for taqwa that people have been following, but this medicine is being prescribed in a particular time to honor that time. And what is that time? It's the revelation of the Holy Book. This is an ongoing theme in the sacred law, actually, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has legislated particular acts of ritual observance to tie us back to the great days of God, the great days in history that He wants us to never forget, of the great sacrifices that great people have made, and to tie us back to a sacred history of what it means to be a human on the earth. For example, the Hajj. What do we do on the Hajj? With our sa'i, with our stoning of the shaitans, the sacrifice of Eid that people also not on Hajj partake in, all of that is to tie us back to an important moment in our sacred human history, which is the sacrifices of Abraham, alayhi salatu wasalam, and his wife and his son. That's what we're commemorating, God, through remembering the great days of history. The fast of Ashura is another of those great days where it's recommended to fast. Why? Because it was a day in which the children of Israel were delivered from Pharaoh, and important days of the days of history that we are being tied back to through a ritual observance. And so the fast is part of the observance of an incredible event, which is the revelation of the book that came down to this community. What's the connection between fasting and the revelation of the book? Is there a connection? Yeah, there's a very direct connection. What's the connection? It harkens back to another of the very great days in the sacred history of man. When our master Moses, alayhi salatu wassalam, was to receive the commandments of the Torah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bade him to go to the mountain. And he observed 30 days of worship and 30 days of fasting. 10 days were added on to that, and it became 40 days. And the Torah was revealed to him. And so, from sacred history, we are aware that fasting is part of what prepares man to receive the book, to receive the speech of God. And in this month, we are being bidden to open our hearts to receiving His book. And the month of fasting is preparing us. It's raising us. It's emptying us. It's opening us to understand and to receive something of this tremendous book. And so Ramadan then is about the book. And fasting is the key to the book, or is preparing you. What does it tell us about the book? After this, الَّذِي أُنزِلَ فِيهِ الْقُرْآنِ هُدًى لِلنَّاسِ وَبَيِّنَاتٍ مِّنَ الْهُدَى وَالْفُرْقَانِ. What is this book? It is guidance for man, guidance for mankind. The book is that book which contains everything that people need to live the good life. In the Quran, the word for that is hayatan tayyiba, a wholesome life, a fulfilled life, a life when you're at ease and tranquil, even if the blows of fate bring whatever they might bring. You found your peace in the center of the storm, in a world you won't always be able to control, but you know what to do to judge right in everything. Guidance for people. But more than that, it says, بَيِّنَاتٍ مِّنَ الْهُدَى, which means clear, decisive proofs of guidance. The book doesn't just tell you what's good for you, it's not a manual. It brings you clear proof for why you should be doing what you should be doing. And we're seeing tasters of that in this passage, and we have more to come. We weren't told you have to, because all we have to do is being told, guys, you've got to fast Ramadan. That message is finished. That's all you have to know, really. You don't need to know anything else. Everything else is what? It's explaining to you something so that you get it. So that whatever might make you want to hold back, you fight it. And you have reason to fight it. And you have arguments to help you fight it. It's pulling you on to your own advantage. It wants you to win. And it's going to cheer you on and argue you on and find your way forward. And we'll see some more of that. Wal-Furqan, it says finally, which is your criterion. It will always be your guide to judge right from wrong. In times in your life when you might not be sure, and maybe you'll step on the wrong, and it will remind you, oh, but that way was right. And so the book is being pictured to us in a tremendous way. It's not just instructions, but it's incredible arguments for your sake. And it's a guide for you. That's what you have to celebrate. And so what this month is about is celebrating the revelation of the book. And that is why since the earliest of times, the earliest community understood this is a Qur'anic month. And they would take time off to recite, many khatmas, or however they used to approach the holy book. And so all of us need to make sure we do something more than normal. And if normal isn't much, then let's not make normal the bar, then let's make something else the bar. The point is, do something, what you're able to do, to recite the book, to review of it what you've memorized and maybe you've forgotten. And ultimately and truly, to ask God to open up this book to you. And we should really say something of the book, because the book is tremendous. But open up something of His book to you. How does the book open up? It's very, very simple in some sense. It's that you have to be aware that you don't know. And you have to feel that you desperately need to know. And that's the key to learning anything in reality. If you think you know, then you know. If you think you don't know, and you're desperate to know, and you're thirsty to know, then you come to the book. And that's why the introduction of the book is a prayer saying, please guide us. This is actually putting you into the frame of mind to be able to start understanding the book. And it guides us to this next important principle, which is prayer. So in this month, recite the book, review what you've memorized of the book, and beg Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to teach you through His book, to open up this book to you. Make this book your companion. In the Quran, in the prophetic dua, make the Quran Rabi'a Sudurina, make the Quran the spring of my heart, the banisher of my worries. This is a prophetic dua. This is our dua in this month. Your best friend. And we'll come back to this idea. But let's carry on with our verses. It says, Al-Furqan, فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهْرَ فَلْيَصُمْ. So it says, so then whoever observes this month, let him fast it. Whoever's present in this month, let him fast it. Then it repeats the dispensation. وَمَنْ كَانَ مُرِيدًا عَلَى سَفَرٍ فَعِدَّةٌ مِنْ أَيَامٍ أُخَرٍ. And whoever is sick or traveling, just make up the number. And it doesn't repeat that dispensation again of, well, you can feed people in replacement for fasting. This is a case of abrogation for the scholars who have interpreted the verses I've presented it, which is many of them. What does abrogation mean? It's that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the law gradually, and He prepared the community to handle this law. Sayyidah Aisha has reportedly said that when the Quran first came, it urged people to believe in God and resurrection and judgment day and so on. And had it come on the first day saying leave zina or leave wine, they would never have left it. Why is this important to us? Because it's part of what we're seeing, this very gentle, loving, caring address, which is coming in every single verse that we're looking at. It's important for us to realize that, and it's important for us to also embody that with the people who are around us, with children, spouses, parents, neighbors, whoever we're interacting with. The point of this whole journey to God is that you keep making it throughout your life. This is the point. And as you take your next step, you're doing more than you were on the last step. And we have to bring this accommodating message to the people around us so that they can too win on to, or if you like, be prepared to worship God in its fullest sense, to the extent of their ability. And so this insight is also important for us to understand. Although the dispensation is being removed from this verse, the community is prepared. But if you're sick or you're fasting, then by all means, make up the number on another day. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ بِكُمُ الْيُسْرَ وَلَا يُرِيدُ بِكُمُ الْعُسْرَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants ease for you. He doesn't want hardship for you. Part of this is showing us that the fasting is ease. If you look at the very many difficult things people have done, spiritual acts and spiritual rigors and the very difficult observances people have done in history and so on, if you were to read them, you'd find fasting is quite a bit easier. What's the proof of the ease of fasting is that people fast who don't even pray or do anything else. There's something inherently doable about this very challenging task, which is the proof of the verse almost. He wants ease for you. And this is the Muhammadan spirituality, if you like. Because the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what does he embody? He embodies being with God while you're in the world. That's what he embodies. Being married and having children, dealing with problems and societies and communities and challenges. The Muhammadan way is the way that you don't have to depart from the world, but you have your 30 days of ritual offering of your body, of your hunger, of your stomach to God while you're working and while you're with your family and while you're in your homes. You didn't have to leave anything. And the riches are great if you focus and you direct yourselves. So this is the tremendous way, and it's the easy way to get to some very special high places. وَلَا يُرِيدُ بِكُمُ الْعُسْرَ. The one who's speaking to you, he's saying, I don't want hardship for you. وَلِتُكْمِلُ الْعِدَّةِ. And you must finish the number. It's a prescribed course. There's a reason for this number. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, if you can't do it, you make it up, but finish the number. Finish this prescription. وَلِتُكَبِّرُ اللَّهَ عَلَى مَا هَدَاكُمْ. Okay, now I've gone a level deeper. Now we've gone just one level deeper again. What was all this month about, we said? Celebrating the revelation. What does it ultimately end up in? It's to realize how fortunate we are that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided us and sent us this book and sent us these teachings and spoke to us as He did and reasoned with us as He did and helped us as He did and made things easy as He did. So what does this verse mean? Quite literally, that you might say Allahu Akbar upon the fact, cognizant of the fact, for the sake of the fact that He guided you. God is greater. He's your greatest friend. He's your greatest ally. He's your greatest guide. He's your greatest well-wisher. He is the greatest. This deep feeling, that's what the month is about. لِتُكَبِّرُوا اللَّهَ عَلَى مَا هَدَاكُمْ وَلَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ, and that you might be grateful. To approach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to approach His book, and then to realize, wow, thank you God. Thank you God. To feel it deeply in your soul. That's this month. That's what this month is. What is the journey to it? As one of the ulama said, it started with taqwa, the taqwa of fasting, and it ended with the shukr, the deep, heartfelt gratitude, which is the brother of love, really. Shukr is, or I should say sister, perhaps. Observance. It's a strange thing about love, really. They say the things you love the most are the things that you've sacrificed for in your life, your family, your children. You start off with this observance and this restraint, and you end up with a deep, heartfelt gratitude for what He's given to you. Eid is what comes after Ramadan. On Eid, what do we say? What's the dhikr of Eid? Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. What should we be feeling at that time? It's the immensity that we've come out of this tremendous month of fasting, of approaching the book, of connecting with God, and we feel so on top of the world right now. And we wear nice clothes, and we thank God through those clothes. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ, that you can be deeply grateful for what you have. Part of gratitude, the ulama say, is using the blessings of God for what they were created. Seeing what He's given you and using it for the purposes that He said, your money, your wealth, your strength. Live for Him. And that's a true expression of gratitude as well. Then the verses move on. There's no mention of fasting in the next verse or the Quran. It says, وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِ عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ. If my slaves, if my servants ask you about me, I'm close. I'm close. Again, there's no mention of Ramadan, but it's come right in between the fasting verses. Placement in the Quran is something scholars think about a great deal. It's a month of being close to God. And the verses from the beginning have been one of someone who's takes great care of you. And is very concerned that you really come on board and walk this walk. I'm very, very close. أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِ. I hear the call of the caller when he calls. I hear the cry of the crier when he cries. Dua, to call upon God. He says, I answer this call in the very moment that the person calls. And so part of this journey to God that this month is speaking with Him. Speaking with Him as much as you can. As much as you can. I'm close. I hear the one who calls when he calls. Then He says, فَلْيَسْتَجِيبُوا لِي. So let them answer me. You feel slightly ashamed just a little bit. I said you're being tugged on a number of tugs, a number of cords in your heart. Shame is one of them. I'm here for you. Whatever you are, I'm here for you. Speak to me. I'm answering you. Can you also answer me? You feel ashamed, well, why have I hung so far back? When He answers me in the moment that I turn to Him. Another deep reason to come on board, step on board and take this journey. فَلْيَسْتَجِيبُوا لِي وَلْيُؤْمِنُوا بِي لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْشُدُونَ. And let them believe in me. what's the expression of this belief? It's calling on Him. The Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, prayer is the very marrow, the very core of worship is dua. So whatever needs you have in this month and after this month, whatever the needs might be, at work, at home, with family, with kids, in the morning, on the way to whatever your needs are, talk to Him, ask Him. And that's your expression of true belief in Him. Let them answer my call and let them believe in me, that they might be rightly guided. Because when you speak with Him and you're aware of Him, He is your friend on this journey that you're all upon. There's two more verses I want to touch on very quickly, although our friend didn't recite them. The next verses, just because there's a few interesting things on this theme that we're talking about, the very interesting nature of the divine address to us. The next verse says, أُحِلَّ لَكُمْ لَيْلَةَ الصِّيَامِ الرَّفَثُ إِلَى نِسَائِكُمْ. On the nights of the fast, it's halal for you to go to your women. Meaning, because the fast is not only from food or drink, but it's also from sexual intercourse during the day. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explicitly saying at night, go by all means, go ahead, in the night time. هُنَّ لِبَاسٌ لَكُمْ وَأَنْتُمْ لِبَاسٌ لَهُنَّ. You are both garments for each other. Which is a deep metaphor of a very close relationship. Where both of you protect each other, both of you conceal each other's faults from the rest of the world, both of you keep each other's secrets, both of you present the best form of each other to the world. You are all garments to each other, one to the other. The next verse says, God knows you were cheating yourself, so He relented to you and He's forgiven you. This is a reference to an incident. They say that the earlier peoples, when they used to observe the fast, they would start the fast from whenever they woke up at night, which could be daybreak and could be earlier. And so some of the believers tried to do this, but they found it difficult. So they tried it, but they also fell short. And so Allah's saying, I've forgiven you all of this. So He's saying, so now go to those women, i.e., do what you want at night. It's perfectly good. وَابْتَغُوا مَا كَتَبَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ, and seek what God has written for you. And eat and drink, the verse goes on. So as you can see again, what I'm calling this gentle address, explicitly saying, by all means, God is saying, eat, drink, do all these things at night, by all means, go ahead. Until that thread of dawn comes on the horizon, and then complete the fast until the night. And don't come to your women folk while you are doing the i'tikaf in the masjid, the verse goes on. Speaking about the observance of i'tikaf, which also takes place during this month, towards the end of the month, just staying in the mosque, devoting oneself to worship. In this time, then there's no intercourse either. Otherwise, like it's saying explicitly, go ahead and don't worry about it. It's only in the daytimes. Then it says something bordering on a more stern, if you like. It's a small segment though. تِلْكَ حُدُودُ اللَّهِ. Those are the limits of God. Allah, the Majestic. Those are His lines now. فَلَا تَقْرَبُوهَا. So don't come close to them. كَذَلِكَ يُبَيِّنُ اللَّهُ آيَاتِهِ لِلنَّاسِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَّقُونَ. Like that tremendous way is how God clarifies His signs for people, that they might truly stay away from what is detrimental to them. In that tremendous way does God clarify His signs, that people can really have taqwa. One last thing, now the verse shifts away from Ramadan now, completely. Something else. But the shift is fascinating. Because the next verse says, it's the last verse, but I'm not going to go on. It says, وَلَا تَأْكُلُوا أَمْوَالَكُمْ بَيْنَكُمْ بِالْبَاطِلِ وَتُدْلُوا بِهَا إِلَى الْحُكَّامِ لِتَأْكُلُوا فَرِيقًا مِنْ أَمْوَالِ النَّاسِ بِالْإِثْمِ وَأَنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. It says, and do not eat. So you can see the connection. And do not eat the wealth of others wrongly by taking them to a judge, that you might eat the wealth of a people sinfully, and you know it. It's actually a separate topic now. But what a connection of the verses of fasting the next topic is, well, don't eat these other people's wealth wrongly. The connection is obviously brings things to your mind, things we maybe touched on already. That it doesn't make sense, as the Prophet said explicitly in the hadith in Bukhari, whoever in the hadith of Bukhari was, whoever doesn't leave qawla zur, which is false testimony. I swear this is mine, I swear he promised it to me, and so on. Whoever doesn't leave false testimony in any act connected with it, then Allah has no need for this man to leave his food and his drink. You're not benefiting God with that. And so there's an important message which we've already hinted at, which is abstaining from what is normally allowed should only call you to be extremely careful about the things that you're normally not allowed. And the things that are most important that the hadiths have emphasized is also what this verse is indicating, which is the rights of other people. And there's many statements about this, that in the month of Ramadan, especially, do not ruin your fast by hurting people. That's it. Abu Aliya, one of the tabi'een, he said, a person whose fasting is in worship, even when he's sleeping on his bed, as long as he doesn't backbite, it's like the worship just stopped right there. Or Jabir ibn Abdullah, one of the Sahaba, just in translation, he said, when you fast, let your ears, eyes and tongue fast from lying and the impermissible. Avoid harming your neighbor. Let nobility and tranquility cover you. Don't make your fasting day and your non-fasting day the same. This very beautiful transition to the other topic is bringing all of that into our minds. So that's what we wanted to cover about these verses. I think you agree with me, it's been quite a journey. There's quite a lot happening here, and there's quite a lot that we've learnt. Just to zoom out and just to maybe bring some of these together, what we've learnt is that fasting is a key to the Holy Book, and that's how we should be thinking about it. It is a emptying out of the things that we stuff our minds and our souls with, so we can be more worthy to receive something of the wisdom of this book. And that's how we should enter this month, that's how we should approach the book. This is a month in which we celebrate guidance. And so that's what we are, again, the verses are bringing that into mind. And to do that, we have to appreciate what that guidance is. And again, what is that? Approaching the book, which is what the Muslims since the earliest of times have made their act, their key schedule of Ramadan, which they've built around. We've seen that taqwa is a means to shukr as well. That restraining yourself from what you aren't supposed to be doing softens your heart. It's a form of sacrifice for God, and it ties your heart to Him in a very interesting way. And it shows you a real gratitude for what He's given you, because you've started living what He told you to do. And that's an important connection that this month is meant to be bringing about in all of us. We've seen that God has given us many reasons to fast. If you start from the beginning, oh, you who believe, if you really believe, you should be fasting. People before you fasted. It's an ongoing cure. Are you going to not do what others have been doing? It's a means for you to have taqwa. It's only a few days. You don't have to do it if you can't. It's better for you if you knew. And you can eat and drink, and the limits of God, don't come close to them. Whatever you're driven by, competition or fear or caution, or you want spiritual fruits, whatever your motives are, you want health, whatever your motives are, whatever kind of a person you are, the verses have spoken to you. And so you find something about, we said wanted this passage to be an illustration of what the month is meant to be helping us do. It's this. As you read the book, you become more and more aware of the speaker. Because as you can see, the speaker has revealed himself to us. He has revealed many things about himself to us in this address, in the way that he's made us anticipate and excited, and he's spoken to us in so many ways. This is the meaning of the Arabic word Rabb, the scholars have said. It's the one who nurtures something and takes it from level to level to level to level. He takes you by the hand all the way up. How do you know the Lord? Open your heart to Him when He speaks to you, and you'll learn a lot. It's a relationship with God. And that's why the book was never a book. That's why I'm saying it's not this manual idea. Do it and you're done. That's all you have to do. There's a lot more going on. It's a relationship with God. That's what the book has always been to the Muslim community. That's why the Muslim community has always been one of what? You finish the book, you start again. Recite the book, you start again. People who are engineers and doctors and street cleaners. Oh, I'm memorizing this surah. I'm memorizing this surah today. What is it? It's because the book is your relationship. It's your direct relationship to God. And however much you know, however much you learn of the Arabic, whatever little you know, you'll find it in your heart if you direct it to Him. And that's why you'll find in this life journey of many Ramadans and non-Ramadans, a journey through the book and in the book, is you'll find the true miracle of the book in your heart. And what's the miracle of the book? Is that your soul will know without any doubt that God is speaking to it. That's it. God, the creator of the world, He's speaking to you right now. And you feel that deep in your soul. And then you know that you've found Him. And the book does this for people across time and place, whatever they know or don't know. It's been the constant devotional act between the believers and their Lord. This relationship will also bring to your mind, when you have these hellfire verses and paradise verses, why are they all there? Because the book is not just telling you what to do, but it's trying to tug you in that direction. And you think about your parents. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after belief in Him, He emphasizes parents a lot. And why is that? Because parents are the best example, if you like, in this worldly plane of God, of the one who brought you into the world and cares about you. Except that parents might have failings, which we've been ordered to overlook, and God doesn't have failings. But the example is clear. They sometimes threaten you, and they sometimes punish you, and they sometimes reward you, but they're always proud when you've done something good. The Quran is always warning and promising and warning and promising and warning and promising, because it's your friend in your life, it's your well-wisher. Previous scripture doesn't mention hellfire and paradise and this and that as often. Why is that? Because there were other prophets coming. It's enough to deliver the message, to tell you once, there's a hell and there's a heaven. You don't need to be told more than that. Just like it's enough to be told you have to fast Ramadan, you have to be told more than that. Why the repetition? Why the constant reminder? It's because there's no more prophets. And so this book is a very different kind of a book. This book, it loves you like a father and like a mother. It's there for you like a friend. It's there to always dust your clothes and pick you up and get you going. And that's why it keeps coming from this angle and that angle and this reminder. And the Prophet came again, who came on the last page. He's a familiar character. Let's look at him again from this angle, from that angle. And that's why the book never gets boring, but it is your companion. And that's what we've seen a little glimpse of in these passages. And that's what the month is about. That's what ultimately our lives are about. A journey to God through His book. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Just one last thing I'll say, and I'll stop here. The one last mark of the journey to the book. Our master Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu in Hadith in Bukhari, he said that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the most generous of people in general, but he was as generous as could be in the month of Ramadan, when he met the angel Gabriel and would review the Quran with him from the beginning of the month until the end of the month. And then Ibn Abbas says, and so when he met Gabriel, in this month of meeting Gabriel, reviewing the Quran, كَانَ أَجْوَدَ بِالْخَيْرِ مِنَ الرِّيحِ الْمُرْسَلَةِ. He was more generous with the good than the fast-flowing wind. What's the wind a metaphor? A metaphor for, it's quick, it's fast, it doesn't differentiate, it fills the space with generosity and kindness. Ibn Abbas didn't say, oh, in Ramadan, because there's more reward, he was more generous. What did he say? Because he was reading the Quran, he was more generous. And so he's telling us the one external fruit of what the Quran is meant to bring about in everybody is this striving to do as much good as you can. And so if there's one mark we want the world to see, we said it wasn't our hunger and it wasn't our thirst. It might be the new mosque, just a little bit. But what's the mark wanted the world to see? It was that we have an increase in good willing, in warmth, in compassion, in good gestures, in kind words, in a smiley face, and so on. Because why does the book call to that? Because the book always reminds you about how precious time is and how serious the journey is. And it naturally pushes you to do as much good as you can. It's as simple as that. And so if there's one mark of this journey that we should be also focusing on in this month, is that we should see whatever we do to other people, how we can do it just that much nicer. And we ask Allah to make that a fruit of engaging with His book, and to help us make that a key also, because that's what part of what the book leads to. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wa sallallahu ta'ala ala Sayyidina Muhammad, walhamdulillah, jazakumullahu khairan.